interesting stuff on the platform, all around giving you guys the insights into how to become more employable. And it's a really cool way of engaging with peers that are probably like-minded to yourself, that will be across all of the universities across the UAE. So it's a platform for graduates across the UAE. So you can share war stories, you can share some stories around where you may not have been successful, stories where you can share where you have been successful and how you managed to do that, just to help your community of other students to succeed also. You know, me and Zainab are always a fan of sort of, you know, we come from the tech scene over in the UK, and collaboration is a real big part of what we do. We want to kind of encourage you guys to collaborate, because the best way to learn is to learn from each other and to learn from each other's experiences. A question, right? So just to answer Samir's question, yes is probably the frank answer, Samir. So I think what you'll find, so the question Samir asked was, due to the current pandemic situation in the global market, are we looking at a slowdown in the hiring industry in the forthcoming months? So I think the answer to that, Samir, is definitely yes. I think there'll be a slowdown. I think you'll probably see some jobs go over the coming months. It's just natural. I think everybody's talking about a potential of a recession looming, and it'll probably be a global recession from that perspective. But one thing to really understand, Samir, in this sort of in this sort of situation, is that when employers are going through this, their next thing is, how do I grow? And how do I guess I'm cutting down my costs, right? So what you would typically cut down is your most senior people, the people that cost you the most amount of money. And what you look at upskilling in, and you look at when you look at how to actually build a team from there on in, there's a lot more emphasis typically on bringing entry-level people in. So graduates are a really good way of supplementing that loss of headcount from the senior level perspective, because what you're able to do is bring in younger talent that might not necessarily be as expensive as more senior talent, but it's talent that you can mold, it's talent that you can invest in somewhat, but you can reap really, really big rewards off at the end. So I think what you'll see is a slowdown, but it's not going to be a major slowdown. I think you'll find that graduate roles won't be as impacted as the more senior roles.
Yeah, I mean,
Kenan, there's a question regarding the Mojo app. Do we just request to join for Mojo app? So basically, I guess the person wants to know whether they can download the app and start using it. I guess that's
you download the app, and yes, you request to join, and we will. The app is not able to be used until a day or two. So we're just in the final stages of our testing, and it'll be available to use by Wednesday. So if you request to join, we'll send an email on Wednesday that says, hey, you know, you can go in and start using the app. So you'll know exactly when that's possible.
There's one more question, which is basically pertaining to the current situation, because most of the interviews nowadays are happening virtually. So are there any tips that you would like to give in terms of, you know, how to get ready with, you know, more of virtual interaction rather than face-to-face?
Yeah, sure. So I would say all the same principles apply with the virtual interaction. However, you want to make sure that you're not distracted, there's no technical issues. So what I would say is that I would set up the whole kind of area. So plan where you're going to have your desk, where your laptop's going to be facing, where your camera is going to be looking. Make sure that you're in a quiet environment. Make sure you can connect to the software before time. So do all of that testing before you get to the interview stage, so that you know you're not spending 10 minutes in your interview trying to figure out technical issues, where that's the 10 minutes that you could have used demonstrating that you are the right fit for that organization.
I think that's good practice in general, given the time that we're in, guys. So I think the fact that we might not be going into the office for the foreseeable future, I guess, for the next 4 to 6 weeks, which is quite a long time. I think what Zainab just mentioned there are things that we should be doing already. Setting ourselves an area where we work out of, an area where we can operate out of. It just brings a bit of normality and a bit of routine to our day, and that's what really helps in this situation that we're all in. It's very easy to, I guess, to fall into an environment where you're not necessarily very organized because you're just waking up and you pick up your laptop and you might have your cereal whilst you're doing some work, and you don't necessarily get the best out of your day by doing that. So similar to what you need to actually prepare for an interview, having those setups beforehand is really, really useful, particularly at this time. It just helps set some structure to your day, and it helps set a routine to your day, which will be vital, and that will obviously support you when you're having an interview as well.
Yeah. And the inspiration behind the name Ojo, yes, there's absolutely inspiration behind that. So Ojo is a play on the word mojo, and our domain name is Find Your Ojo, which is essentially just saying find your mojo, find your confidence, that spring in your step. So it's all about empowering youth to be able to find that confidence within them so they can succeed.
What I guess the reason why we called it Ojo, and just to answer that, so just our backgrounds. So being obviously a recruiter for nearly 8 years, and Zainab being an L&D working for Deloitte and IBM, we were always the first port of call for our friends and extended network. So once somebody graduated, they'd always come to us and say, hey guys, can you help us? And we've realized very quickly that some of these graduates were really, really capable. They were really smart. They really wanted to do well. But unfortunately, once they graduated, they thought, the world was their oyster, and you go into the market and you realize very quickly that it can be a little bit challenging, that, it's quite competitive out there. And we realized also that a lot of them started losing their confidence, losing their drive, just losing what was really special about them, which was really important to have when you're facing someone, because everybody, buys off energy, right? So we found that they lost their mojo a little bit. So our domain name is Find Your Ojo. It's all about finding that spring back in your step and your groove again.
There's a question to you guys. It says, it's from a professor who've joined in for this session today. So he said that there are many science students here right now listening to our conversation. Do you find any stark difference in interview structure for scientific companies?
No, so typically all companies will be assessing based on, at a graduate level specifically, assessing based on competencies, capabilities, and potential. The only difference that you find with the scientific roles is that they look for technical capability as well. So you may have an additional interview with more around your capability to technically explain certain concepts and deliver certain things. So for those, I would be prepared for more technical type of questions, more specific questions to your knowledge, your degrees, and that will be slightly different, but the same concepts will apply in demonstrating that you are the right cultural fit, that there's been examples where you can show that you have met these competencies and that you are the right person to do that role, as well as knowing what that role entails from a scientific, technical perspective. Anything to add?
Yeah, I think what you'll find is just as the world moves to more sort of automation, and a lot of certain roles will be taken over by bots, etc. What you're realizing is that the 9 key sort of skills that we mentioned, or some of those skills are becoming more prevalent. So because as we move to slightly more automated ways of working, things like problem solving skills become more important and more pertinent to employers. Communication skills become more important and more pertinent to employers. Kind of that teamwork ability, because these aren't things that you can get a robot to do. So it's these particular soft skills, which are quite key competencies, that we should really kind of work on a little bit more. But as Zainab said, certain industries, you'll find that you would need to have, if you want to be a software developer, an organization might ask you all these questions, but they also might make you go through a kind of a software development test to gauge your development capabilities. We can't do away from that, but the competencies that we realize are typically what employers seek as a whole.
One last question. I think it's about, the classical question that every employer asks, tell me about yourself. How to, answer this particular question in the exact manner what, employers expect us to answer.
Yeah, I would focus more. So tell me about yourself is that, the employer is trying to learn more about you and what makes you you. So tell them a little bit about your background, where you studied, why you chose the particular degree, why you're interested in this career, for example. So just a little bit more so that they can understand you as a person and the context behind your motivations, and what makes you you. So definitely more than just your name and your university, a little bit about, the background, your motivations, your drivers, why this is the right fit for your career. So keep it at that.
I guess a way of it's, I think one thing an employer might want to know about is that depending on the industry that you're in, but they might want to know about, what drives you, what's your why, where does your passion really lie. So you need to know these things firstly before you're able to answer those, right? So if you know what gets you up every morning, what drives you, if it's if you're working in customer service and what drives you is that day-to-day communication with people, it's the ability to be able to help people and solve their problems, then that is something that you should be talking about. So it's just about your passion and your drive, I would have thought.
Great. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Zainab and Kenan, once again. I think we've all the questions we've asked, all the questions. Yep. So thanks once again for the time. I think this time we had the opportunity to meet you virtually, but next time around when everything settles down, we would definitely like you guys to come onto the campus and interact with students personally.
Absolutely. We would absolutely love to do that. And thanks so much for having us. We're really excited to start our engagement with all the Manipal students. So really looking forward to having you guys on board.
Yeah, and thank you, Abdul Razak, for all your help in getting this set up.
My pleasure. My pleasure. And I've recorded this session for students who have missed out the initial part. I can share the session across with you very shortly.
Brilliant.
Great. Thank you so much.
Our pleasure. Our pleasure. Thank you very much.
Have a nice day.
Thanks, guys. Enjoy the rest of your week.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.